Welcome to PorkAndGames. This is a second video that I wanted to do, and what I'm going to be doing in this video is demonstrating two projects that I worked on in Unity. And really these projects are in line with what I'm hoping to see in Space Engineers. What I wanted to show is what I'm very interested in Space Engineers is if we can actually ever get NPCs, non-player characters, into the game, really into any crafting game where if you don't have other folks to play with in some of these games, some of these large crafting games, you could actually have a crew that you could manage and maybe keep alive for yourself. And so that's really the point of these projects, is just to sort of show a prototype of what might be in Space Engineers. I know they're going to be busy with planets that are coming out. Everyone's very excited about that. But I just wanted to show these two prototypes. And this is something that I created on my own, just as sort of a, what could it be like? So I'm going to show a 2D version of this project and a 3D version. I'm by no means a great programmer and certainly not an artist, but these are just to get the concepts across of having NPCs on a spaceship that you craft, and then keeping those NPCs alive. So this is really just the creation of sort of a game set where you could actually have something like that. And if you can take this idea and sort of transpose it into Space Engineers, you can kind of see where I'm hoping at least one of these crafting games will get to. So I'm going to go ahead and launch this Unity project. This is something I created about 2 months ago, and I started with 2D, and then I'll take you into a second project, which is 3D. So I'm going to go ahead and hit play here. I'm actually in the Unity Designer right now, but now I'm actually in the sort of like the test window of the game. This isn't a build. So keeping in line with a space crafting type of a game, the way this crafting engine works, and this is just something I created, it's not a template from anything else. Imagine, if you will, sort of like in Space Engineers, you're going to create a simple spaceship. So that's what I'm going to do here. In this particular design of a game that I worked on, the user's required to actually place down the floors of their spaceships, sort of like that space game. I think it's DF9, Space-Based DF9, where it's an open crafting type of a game. So the point being here is you can create a spaceship in any way that you want, much in the same way as Space Engineers. Now this is just 2D, and remember that it's not the crafting per se that's sort of the point here, but the actual NPC creation later in the game. But in order to get to that point, I do need to show, I need to create something on my own that's never been created before. And if you're a Space Engineers player or fan, you'll understand exactly what we're doing here, because that's the whole point of that game, is to create your creations and then actually to fly it around. So alright, so this isn't even symmetrical, but that's okay. It'll get the point across. What I'm going to do now is sort of pretend like, well, I'll maybe tidy this up a little bit. Imagine this is a spaceship that I've created. I'll try to make it symmetrical there. And what does a spaceship do? Well, it's going to have specific components and systems that are going to be used in it. So I want to sort of show that. In this particular prototype, what you're going to do is, I've got some building blocks, so I'm going to bring up this build menu. This is a very quick project, so I didn't waste a lot of time with any graphics. This is just to get basic blocks in place. I've got a steel armor block that I'm going to use. So this is really very similar to Space Engineers in a sense. Certainly not as complex by any means. No physics. But I just wanted to get a basic build engine put in place, so I used Unity to do that. And I'm going to go ahead and build this out. And this was created based off of watching what other people are doing in Unity and trying to mimic some of the build behaviors. And there are people that have tried to make Minecraft in Unity. And so that's, watching those videos, I was able to create my own crafting engine here. So I'm going to go ahead and put up a bridge now in the front. So I'll pick my window block out here. And I think I added some lights to those. So I'm going to go ahead and compartmentalize. So imagine this is a bridge up here in the front. I'm going to put a steel armor block along to sort of separate that, to compartmentalize. If you've ever played a game like Faster Than Light, what's cool about that game is you actually have a spaceship, kind of like, only it's a pre-made spaceship, but it's in a 2D engine like this, where you're sort of looking top down. Now this is being built in in a 3D space, but it's really only two-dimensional in the sense that I can't build vertically. But if you've ever played Faster Than Light, it's sort of like this, where you actually have compartmentalized rooms. And I'm going to add on to this a little bit. So, and this is where my art skills really show they're lacking here. But let me go ahead and put in some more doors so that we can actually show how this ship could maybe be. I'm going to put in some door blocks. And I actually built a few systems just for the purpose of demonstration. So I'm going to put in a reactor block. And I've actually got some statistics up here, which these are tracking with the game. So it tells me how many components my spaceship has been made with, what the weight is, how much power it needs or is lacking, based on the blocks that I'm using, and then how many crew I have, and how many oxygen generators I have. And this list could go on and on. Space Engineers works in the same way. When you create a spaceship, you have all these statistics. I want to have a set number of credits, and then eventually what would be nice is if you could take this spaceship and actually use it in missions and upgrade it over time. So once again, I'm back with I just put in my doors. I'm going to go ahead and put in a reactor. We'll kind of zoom in here. So let's pretend this is the reactor room. You know what? That's kind of close to the door, so I'm going to move that. I'll put it maybe back in this corner. And I do have the ability to actually swivel these blocks if I want to. Similar to Space Engineers once again. I'll go ahead and put in an oxygen generator. Maybe put that here. And then I'll go ahead and put in a crew quarters. Now this is really just a placeholder graphic, but I'll put that in. Just imagine, if you would, some type of like a dormitory for crew. Now this looks terrible. I spent maybe 20 minutes creating this, but if you can just imagine you had some type of a placeable station that crew could go to. So I've got a spaceship here, just a basic prototype of a spaceship. I don't have any other blocks to put in that really mean anything at this point. But one thing that's kind of cool is if I imagine, if you will, a sort of a faster than light scenario where I could actually have different NPCs and different stations of the ship. What I'm going to do is actually zoom in as a player. So if I hit K, now I can walk around my spaceship. And notice how there's actually a ceiling above me. And this is really just a trick to switch from 2D to 3D. And what it allows you to do is have sort of a faster than light perspective in one sense, but then actually have a 3D perspective, sort of like Space Engineers, in another sense. So now I can walk into the different rooms. Here's my reactor room. There's another door beyond. Here's my crew quarters. If I go back across to this other room here, this other chamber, here's my oxygen generator. So, pretty rudimentary graphics, but I just wanted to show an engine of, hey, in a few minutes, as a player, I can create a spaceship. I can control it in a 3D environment, and I can also then walk around in it. And if I could then have some sort of an engine where I could take this on missions and have parts of it get destroyed, or maybe have, maybe a block gets destroyed over here, and so suddenly this room has no oxygen. There's all sorts of things you could do with this basic crafting engine. The last piece I want to show you before I move on to the second project here in this video is I'm actually going to bring in some crew. So I'm going to click on this NPC button. And what they're going to do is they're going to randomize, or they're going to come in from this area, and he's going to randomize in between stations on the spaceship. I'll go ahead and bring in another. Maybe I'll bring in 4 crew members. Now, these crew are not something that I created. They basically they are the basic stock third-person character that Unity comes with. But I don't know much about animation, so I use these guys, and they seem to work out pretty well. Imagine each of these stations now needing maintenance from these guys, or maybe it gets damaged in a battle. These guys are going to, for the time being, because I don't actually assign them a station, they're randomizing in between these different stations, and once they've done their work, they're going to go to another station, and that's really all they do. What's nice about the new Unity engine is I can actually cut away pieces of the ship now while I'm running in real time. So let's say that I wanted to get rid of this door, and I'll move the door to here instead, and I'll go ahead and put in a wall. The Unity now is smart enough that it'll actually take into account any changes that I make in real time and actually reroute these NPCs. And so I could actually have a pretty dynamic building situation with NPCs, and maybe these guys level up over time based on how much they've worked on a particular job. And if they get killed in battle, you lose them. And so they sort of improve the experience of a space builder because you now have a crew with you, and so you could actually have some good game time and not just be all by yourself or trying to find other players, even if there's only a few people on the server. And obviously I can hit K, I can come in and I can actually interact with my crew if I wanted to. And I can see that they're getting work done and randomizing, and I can suddenly be one of them. And once again, if I wanted to come out here to the macro level and do some more building, I could do that as well. So like, let's say I wanted to add another chamber over here. Let's say we needed another reactor or something. Completely making this up as I go. There we go. And I got the ability to delete blocks as well. Oops. There we are. So here's another chamber in my spaceship that I've added to, and I'll go ahead and add a system in here. I'll add another reactor into here, and these guys should eventually, very quickly actually, pick up that that's there, and they'll travel to it to provide maintenance on this new block that I've created. See, so here's a crew member coming down to go and work on that. So that's really the whole point of this video, is to show a project I'm working on. I'm very excited about the game Space Engineers and what it's turning into, and I think where it will go. I'm hoping that we can have NPCs, and I know it's incredibly difficult to have them when they're having to do pathfinding on a moving spaceship, but this was just my idea of showing NPCs and how they could maybe service parts of important systems on your spaceship, and actually how they will serve as yet another component in your ship that you want to keep alive. And I think it'll really add a really cool dimension to the game. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll go ahead and stop this video and this project, and in the next video I'm going to show my 3D rendition of this spaceship. So we're actually going to take it to a different level where we'll actually show NPCs on a ship that I build in a different engine than this, in the sense that I build it straight up from the 3D world. Thanks for watching.